Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we are going to see important React.js interview questions. So before starting the video, guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you will receive all the latest notifications. Apart from that, I have a React.js interview playlist on my channel. Make sure to check that. I have already created 2 videos in that playlist related to interview questions, and I have covered many important interview questions in those videos also. So make sure to check them too. So let's start with this video, and the first question for today that we have is how to write comments in React.js. We are starting with a simple question and then we will move forward. So basically the comment in React.js are similar to JavaScript multi-line comments, but they are wrapped in curly braces. So if you have, there are basically 2 types of comments that you can write in React.js: single line comment and multi-line comment. So if you have to write a single line comment, you have to write it something like this: curly bracket slash star, and then whatever your content, and then star slash curly bracket. This is a single line comment, and again multi-line comment is also written in similar way. So this one, and then you write your comments, and then this one. So basically this is how we write comments in React.js. Let's move on to our next question. What is reconciliation? Again, guys, just remember that this is one of the important interview questions that you will get in React. Okay, and mostly what happens is, people don't have enough words. They understand the concept, but they do not have the enough words. So that is why I have taken a long paragraph, so that you can also answer it in this way in your interviews. But as of now, first of all, we will understand what is reconciliation, and then we will come to this answer again and we will understand what this answer is saying. So for now, just read this highlighted line, that is, reconciliation is the process through which React updates the browser's DOM and makes React work faster. Let us now understand what is reconciliation in React. So basically, in order to understand reconciliation, we have to understand the concept of virtual DOM. So let us quickly understand how virtual DOM works. So virtual DOM works in 3 simple steps. First one, 3, or you can even say 4. Okay, just to explain in the interview, you can say 4 simple steps. First is, whenever you do your first change, the UI gets created. Okay, UI gets created, and before the UI gets created, there is a virtual DOM that gets created for that UI. So in virtual DOM gets created in the first change. Okay, and second time when you do any update in your code, then whenever any underlying data changes, the entire UI is re-rendered in the virtual DOM representation. So next time when you do any update, okay, then it does not changes the actual DOM, but what it does is it updates the virtual DOM first. Okay, and then when it updates the virtual DOM first, it will check this version of virtual DOM, that is the newer version, with its old version of virtual DOM. Okay, it will compare the newer version of virtual DOM with its old virtual DOM, and this comparison is only the second step. So let's third step. So let's understand what was, again revise, what is the first step. First step was UI gets created initially. At that time, the virtual DOM gets created. So first of all, whenever there is a new change or a new code which is running for the first time, the virtual DOM gets created for that, and whenever any subsequent code subsequent changes is done in that code, then virtual DOM gets updated. And the third step is comparison of newer virtual DOM with the previous virtual DOM's version. Okay, so let's see this difference here. The difference between the previous virtual DOM representation and the new one is calculated. For example, this was our previous one, okay, and this one is our newer one. So now the comparison is happening between them, and it finds out that only these 2 nodes are changed and rest all the nodes are similar as to the previous one. So now as a next step, what will happen is it will only update these 2 nodes in the actual DOM on the UI and will keep everything as it is. So just to increase the performance. And the last step is this only, that is, once the calculations are done, the real DOM will be updated with the only things that have actually changed. So in the real DOM, only this part is updated and rest of the part is kept as it is. And this last step is only called as reconciliation. Okay, so let's quickly revise it so that you understand it better. First step was whenever the code changes happens for the first time, your virtual DOM representation will happen. Okay, virtual DOM representation of the memory will be created for the first time. Second step is if there is any subsequent update, then for the subsequent update, the newer version virtual DOM will be created. And then third step is comparison between the newer virtual DOM and the previous virtual DOM will happen, and this comparison is also called as diffing. You have to remember this word also. And the final part is reconciliation. Okay, so in the final one, what it will do is reconciliation, that it will only update the necessary parts in the actual DOM and not update the same or the ones which are not changed. So now let's read this answer. Reconciliation is the process through which React updates the browser's DOM and make React work faster. React uses diffing algorithm so that components updates are predictable and faster. React would first calculate the difference between the real DOM and the copy of the DOM, virtual DOM. When there's an update of component, React stores a copy of browser's DOM, which is called as virtual DOM. When we make changes of or add data, React create a new virtual DOM and compares it with the previous one. This comparison is done by diffing algorithm. Now React compares the virtual DOM with the real DOM. It finds out the changed nodes and updates only the changed nodes in the real DOM, leaving the rest nodes as it is. This process is called as reconciliation. I hope now the entire story makes sense, because we have already discussed the 4 points and reconciliation is final point out of the 4. So let's move on to the next question now. So the next question is why React uses class name over class attributes, because we have seen that in HTML there was a class attribute that we used to use, but why React uses class name? So there are two important reasons behind this. We will see this. First of all, let's read the answer for it. The attributes names written in JSX turned into keys of JavaScript objects, and then the JavaScript names cannot contain dashes or reverse words. It is recommended to use camel case wherever applicable in JSX code. The attribute class is a keyword in JavaScript, and JSX is an extension of JavaScript. That's the principal reason why React uses class name instead of class pass a string as the class name prop. So first, there are two main reasons, as I mentioned. So first reason is JSX is converted into JavaScript object. Okay, we will understand what this means when I'm saying now. So, and second one is class is a keyword. Okay, class is a keyword in JavaScript. Let us understand the first one. Okay, so the first one is whenever we write line like this, okay, it gets converted to our react.create element. We have seen this is in one of our previous interview questions. So first of all, this question is like in this example we can see that this is the JSX representation. So we have a div and then a ID, login, and then div is closing. So how it is converted into JavaScript code is using react.create element. So react.create element have multiple parameters. So first one being the tag that we are using, second one that is the attribute, last one is the content. So in this way, first of all, the JSX code is converted into react.create element, and then this react.create element is understood by the browser in terms of DOM object. Okay, in terms of object, so it's the same code is converted into this way, and then it is understood by the browser. So this object takes type, props, and in the props we have children and ID. So children means basically the content, and ID or class as the class. So basically when we write ID, it will be displayed like this, and when we write class name, it will come like this. Okay, now instead of this, if we put, so because first of all, class is already reserved, so we cannot make use of that. And then the second reason is it cannot have spaces or dashed or anything in between. So in order to avoid any confusion and DOM to understand the objects clearly, we have adopted this naming convention in JSX that any attribute will have a camel casing convention. So this is the main reasons for it. Let's move on to the next question. What are fragments in React.js? It is a common pattern or practice in React for a component to return multiple elements. Fragments let you group a list of children without adding extra nodes to the DOM. You need to use either or a shorter syntax having empty tag. Basically what happens is, suppose if you are returning your JSX, okay, and you have multiple elements to return. For example, if you have a h1, okay, and in this way, and let's consider that another one is a paragraph tag, okay, and then you have some content. So you cannot write like this, okay, it will give you an error, because in JSX what happens is, the element should have, there should be a common element which should cover your children elements. So you have to cover them within a single element. So there are two ways to do it. Either you can put a div, okay, on all, like a parent as a common parent. You can do this way, this is also fine. Or what you can do is, you can use react.fragment. One more important thing is, React element can also be written just like this, okay, without writing anything. So if you write like this, it automatically understands that you are writing React fragment. So React, this is called as, usually called as the syntactic support form of writing react.fragment. Okay, let's now see the example of how to use fragment in the story component. Okay, there is an example that we have seen. So this one was the code, okay, previously. It is also possible to render list of fragments inside a loop with the mandatory key attributes supply. So in this case, what they are doing is, they are taking a fragment, okay, and then it has children elements, and then, like, they are mapping over an array. So in array what happens is, we need to pass a key, and key can only be given on the parent element or the first element. So the first element that is coming is here, so you have to give the key to this one. So React fragments can also be passed keys to them. One more important thing is, usually you don't need to use until and unless there is a need of key attribute. The usage of shorter syntax looks like below. So basically, if you want to use shorter syntax, which I have already told you, you can use it like this. Let's move on to the next question, which is, why fragments are better than container divs. So you can create a parent div in this way, or you can use a React fragment in this way. So ideally it is considered that fragments are better, okay, there are some reasons to it, than parent divs. So let us understand why it is said like so, that fragments are better than container divs. So there are major three reasons that we have taken. So first is, fragments are a bit faster and use less memory by not creating an extra DOM node. This only has a real benefit on very large and deep trees. The first reason being is, whenever we create a div, okay, it will be displayed in our DOM. When I say displayed in our DOM, when you will inspect your application in the browser, Chrome browser or any browser, you can see this div, okay, in your structure. But if you have written this fragment, this will not be displayed in your structure or in your code. Okay, that is one of the reasons, and that too you have to remember in mind that this only has a real benefit on very large and deep trees. Okay, it's not like if you have a very short code or basic code, then the performance wise or it is improved or something. But if it is a very large code and it is very deep, nestedly deep trees you have created, then only it is beneficial. Second one is, some CSS mechanisms like flexbox and grid have a special parent-child relation, and adding divs in the middle makes it hard to keep the desired layout. So CSS, in CSS we use flexbox and grid. So flexbox, what it does is, it automatically applies some stylings on the children div. Last and important change is, the DOM inspector is less cluttered. So if you are using a lot of divs, it might be very cluttered, and in the DOM inspector you might see a lot of divs. But if you are using fragments, you will not see a lot of extra divs in your DOM. So it's like div has its own advantage, but sometimes it is a common thing that they ask in interview, that why fragments are usually considered as better than divs. So these are the 3 points that you have to mention. So let's now move on to the next question. What are the advantages of React? So basically this question can also be considered as, what are the advantages or features. So if you are getting this question in your React interviews, you can also answer what are the features of React. Let's see one by one. First is, it increases the application performance because it uses virtual DOM. Second is JSX. So it uses JSX, which makes the code easy to read and write. Third, it renders both on client and server side. So it supports server side rendering also. Fourth is, it is easy to integrate with frameworks like Angular, Backbone, since it is only a Vue library. Last one is it is easy to write unit and integration test with tools such as Jest. These 5 major features. In that, the first one was virtual DOM. So that is what I said. You can see right in this question also we have considered virtual DOM as the advantage. And next one was reusable or composable is way of writing code. So in React we use components to write our code. So which means like components can be reused anywhere. So this is also one of the advantage or feature of React.js. Next one is unidirectional data flow. So in React, data flows from parent to child component. So that is unidirectional data flow. And next one is JSX. So React provides JSX. And final is server side rendering. So React also support server side rendering, because of which it is very easy and you get already rendered code in the first go itself, that is already rendering being rendered and coming on your DOM from the server. So these are the advantage of React.js. Let's move on to next question now. What are the limitations of React? So apart from the advantages, there are very few limitations of React that you can say. So but if you are asked, you have to say these points. First one is React is just a view library and it is not a fully fledged framework. So there is a learning curve, okay, for beginners who are new to web development. So they have to understand from scratch. So it might take a little bit of time and a learning curve is there for beginners, but once you learn, it is not that tough. Next is integrating React into traditional MVC frameworks required some additional configuration. So if you have if you have a already traditional project where you have to integrate React, then you have to do some additional configuration. Next point is the code complexity increases with inline templating and JSX. So sometimes it might be a bit harder to read the code because we have inline templating, and inside inside your HTML structure, like inside your JSX code only, you are writing multiple conditional things, like conditionally you are showing some of the DOM elements, so conditionally you are hiding it. So sometimes the code complexity increases. That can be one of the disadvantage you can say. And last point is too many smaller components leading to over engineering or boilerplate. So sometimes the code gets divided into too many smaller components, which might makes the code a bit of confusing or unreadable, but again it depends on developer to developer. So these are the limitations of React. Next is how to use inner HTML in React. So basically in HTML in JavaScript we had inner HTML. So if we have to manipulate the DOM, we used to write inner HTML in JavaScript. So if the same thing we have to do in React, how can we do it? If you have to manipulate the DOM, so how can you do that in React? Let's see the answer for this. So the dangerously set HTML attribute is React's replacement for using inner HTML in browser's DOM. Just like inner HTML, it is risky to use this attribute considering cross-site scripting attacks, and you need to pass a __ HTML as a key and HTML as the text value. So let's see the example for it. For example, in this code here, we have to write something in the div. Okay, so what we are doing is we are doing dangerously set inner HTML equals to, and we are giving it a function, and then in the function we are returning this thing, that is our HTML, what we have displayed on the HTML. So __ HTML colon and first and whatever is our mid dot, like whatever the HTML code is, then we can display it like this. But always remember that you can always do this in React, but it is not a better practice to do it, because your code gets risky and it is open or prone to cross-site scripting attacks. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So basically you just have to remember that in React, the replacement for inner HTML is dangerously set inner HTML, and then make sure to while passing the code, you have to write it using __ HTML and then colon and then your code. So moving on to the next question is which is how to use styles in React.js. So there are basically different ways of writing styles in React.js. So in this question we are only going to answer for inline style. So basically you can create a CSS file, you can use modules, you can use style components, a lot of external frameworks or libraries you can use for styling. Basically, the main answer that you have to give when you are asked this question is this one, that the style attributes accept a JavaScript object with camel case properties. So you can give an example. For example, in this div, you have to apply your style property. So you can to use this attribute style, and then you have to pass an object with your style properties. Okay, so div style is our constant that we have created. So, and this constant is a object. So div style equals to, and then this curly braces, so color blue and background image, whatever your background image is. Now one thing to note over here is the properties that we have in CSS are also like basically camel case. So you have to remember that you don't have to use it in the like how we used to do in actual CSS. So in actual like CSS, if we have to use write background image, we used to do something like this. If you write this, you will get an error here. So that is what I told that you have to use camel casing convention. Also, it's not like you have to create object separately and then pass it. You can also do it something on the go also. So if this is your div and you have to apply style here itself, so what you are going to do, you are going to use two curly braces and then color that is blue, and the next property which was like background image. You know, sometimes many people get confused why we are using two brackets. So you have to understand that first one is for JSX, second one is because your CSS code is an object, so that is why you are using two curly braces. Okay, let's move on to the next question now. How events are different in React.js. So you know, events are different in React.js means like we have to basically do a comparison, like the events we used to have in HTML also. So what is the difference that we have in events here? So let's see the first difference. React event handlers are named using camel case rather than lowercase. Okay, this we already know that for example, in HTML we used to write the event handlers like this. So if we have a event handler on click, we will write it like this, but in React we will use camel casing, so on click. Okay, this is first of the difference. And second is when with JSX you pass a function as the event handler rather than a string. Okay, which means like in this example only you are seeing in HTML we used to pass it as a string, but in React we used to pass it as a we are passing it as a function, okay, rather than a string. So this is one of the things. So first one was camel case, second was how you pass it. So the third one is you can return false in case of HTML, but in case of React we pass event.prevent default. Okay, so this is the above one is a React example, and where we are passing event.prevent default, and the below one is a HTML example where we are passing return false. Last difference is in HTML you need to invoke a function by appending parentheses. So you know, if you have to invoke a function in your event handling, you have to do it by adding parentheses, but in React you have to pass it directly. Never write parentheses over here, because otherwise it will call your function every time when your component re-render. Okay, the other way of it is like you can do a callback and then you can put your active lasers here, and then you can write brackets. Usually we do this callback thing whenever you know we are dependent first on the state change. We want that the state should change on the, and then on the updated value we should do the calculation. And also when we have to pass any parameter to it, so argument to it, so then in that case we use this callback way. But anyway, the main difference that we have to discuss was in HTML we add this parenthesis, but in React we do not add the parenthesis with the function name. So let's okay, so that's all for this video. So in this video we have basically covered 10 different React interview questions. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section, and if you found this video helped you a little bit, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That's all for this video, and I will see you next time.